Welcome back to Bible Basics for New Believers. My name is Ray. Today we're going to look at the intertestamental period, also known as the 400 years of silence, because God does not give any new written revelation. We've already covered the whole Bible. We've looked at a survey of the Old Testament, and we've looked at the survey of the New Testament. Hopefully that material has helped you be more confident in your reading of the Bible and helps you to have better understanding of it. Again, our videos are focusing on giving you information rather than techniques about reading the Bible. We've seen so far that the Old Testament and the New Testament are one book, and that the New Testament is the fulfillment of the Old Testament. We've seen that both thematically and theologically by seeing that Jesus connects both the Old Testament and the New Testament. The story of the Bible is God redeeming a people for himself through Jesus, his Son. And that covers the period of the Old Testament all the way through to the New Testament. Today we want to see how the New Testament and the Old Testament are historically linked. That is important to us for two reasons. It helps us to understand that the Bible is one continuous work, one book. And it also helps us in understanding that the Bible occurs in history. It is not fable or myth. It happens in real time and real history. When we come to the New Testament, we see such things as Pharisees and Sadducees and rabbis and synagogues. But when we left the Old Testament, there was no mention of any of these things. When we leave the Old Testament, the people are ruled over by the Persians. When we open the New Testament, we see them ruled over by the Romans. When we leave the Old Testament, the temple is very underwhelming. It's been rebuilt, but it is not very magnificent. When we come into the New Testament, we once again have a very magnificent temple. So all of these things happen during this intertestamental period, these changes. We have to get in perspective what is 400 years. So if we would look in our own culture, we're at 2020 now. Well, in 1620, that's when the Pilgrims come to Plymouth Rock. So imagine if you were to open a book and see the story of how the Pilgrims come to Plymouth Rock, and then the next chapter we open up, we're in 2020 and looking at current 21st century America. You can see the vast changes that occur. And so we have to see the same sort of thing happen during this intertestamental period. A great number of changes did occur. It is helpful for us to understand the history of how those changes came about so that we can see the whole continuity in the development of the Bible. Let's look at a scripture, Galatians 4:4. But when the fullness of the time came, God sent forth his Son, born of a woman, born under the law. So what does that tell us? Well, it tells us at the end of the Old Testament, the fullness of time was not there. But when we open the New Testament, the fullness of time is there. So in between that time of the Old Testament and the New Testament, events have occurred that have resulted in the fullness of time. So John MacArthur, a pastor and a Bible teacher, puts it this way. In God's timetable, when the exact religious, cultural, and political conditions demanded by his perfect plan were in place, Jesus came into the world. So what are some of those developments? Well, in this video, we're going to concentrate on things that occurred actually during the exile, that 70-year period where the nation of Judah was placed into exile in Babylon. And these things began there, but really didn't fully develop until the intertestamental period. So the first thing we want to talk about is synagogues. In 586 BC, the temple is destroyed and the Jews no longer have a place to worship. The cream of the crop the leadership, is taken into captivity into Babylon. And that was the Babylonian way of keeping insurrection from occurring, since there would be no good leadership left within the country. And some people did remain in the original country, in Judah. So the people who are taken into captivity in order to preserve their heritage and their culture and their religion begin to gather in groups to worship. This will be the start of the synagogue system. When they return from exile to Jerusalem to rebuild the city and to rebuild the temple, many remain behind, and that synagogue system stays in place in Babylon. As we move from the Old Testament into the intertestamental period, synagogues will actually begin to be developed within the country of Israel itself. And when we open the New Testament, there are actually synagogues in Jerusalem. The synagogue system becomes very important in the spreading of the gospel. Jesus actually visited many synagogues in his ministry to speak. Paul, when he went on his 3 missionary journeys, and each city that had a synagogue would go there first, and then when he was rejected from there, would move out into the city itself. So the synagogue system was in place so that the gospel could move forward very quickly and very efficiently. So this is all part of God's plan. This is one of the things that was coming into place during the intertestamental period that would be used by God to get the gospel forward. Another result of the destruction of the temple in 586 BC is the change in the priesthood. Whereas the priesthood was a predominantly religious role when the temple was in place, when it falls, it becomes more of a political role. So we see where the priests used to do the sacrifices for the people before God, they now serve the role as being a liaison between the people and their captors. Another thing that occurred during the exile was the people moved away from their idolatry. They understood it as sin, and it would no longer become an issue in their religious activities. What replaces that is they begin to understand the centrality of the law in relationship to God. And as a result, there develops a number of people who become experts in the law. And these people will become known as scribes. We read this in Ezra chapter 7. Now this is the copy of the decree which King Artaxerxes gave to Ezra the priest, the scribe, learned in the words of the commandments of the Lord and his statutes to Israel. Artaxerxes, king of kings, to Ezra the priest, the scribe of the law of the God of heaven, perfect peace. So the priests initially will become scribes, and others will follow behind them. And the scribes will become prominent in religious and social circles among the culture. In their zeal, the scribes want to keep the people from breaking the law. To do that, they initiate a process called fencing the law, where they put other laws around the law itself to keep people from getting close to breaking the initial law. The scribes that were really good at teaching became rabbis. And when we open the New Testament, we see Jesus himself is called a rabbi because he is a teacher of the law. The scribes are also in the New Testament referred to not only as scribes, but when we see the word lawyers, these are one and the same people. This development of this extra law actually takes on a life of itself. It's called the Midrash to begin with. It moves on during the intertestamental period to become the Mishnah, and then there's Gemara added onto it. And all of this oral law is in play when we open the New Testament. And when we see Jesus attacking the traditions of the people, he's talking about all this extra law that was given. And when we see Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount say, "You have heard it said, he's making reference to this oral law. This oral law will actually, after the destruction of the temple in 70 AD, some years later, be written down and become the Talmud. And the Talmud is what the Jews use today, and they consider it equal in authority to the Bible. These oral laws will become the center of controversy and conflict between Jesus and the religious leaders of the Jews. One prime example is that of their arguments about the Sabbath and what it means. On the good side, the scribes understood the need for the law, but on the bad side, they did not understand the purpose of the law. The scribes saw the law as an external set of rules which could make you right before God, and Jesus challenges them on that point. He says the law must come from the heart, not from an outside obedience to rules. In the next video, we are going to continue to talk about the intertestamental period, and we're going to focus on some historical events. If you are enjoying these videos, feel free to subscribe, and until then, God bless.